A food fight is shaping up in Washington,
America wants to feed the world with genetically modified foods. The EU has done
It's very bad news. We should especially
European politicians are doing citizens are using.
Well, here is a story that will make your stomach hurt.
What did we do before GMO? Was the food lousy in America or what? Countries. Why wouldn't it work here? I mean, why are we behind the curve here?
It seems impossible to turn on the TV or surf the internet without hearing something about the American food system. GMOs, pesticides, food allergies, factory farms, antibiotics, added hormones, cage-free, grass-fed. There's an overwhelming cloud of negativity floating around about our food and where it comes from. We all know that the food-like products that we put into our bodies on a daily basis bear little resemblance to what people ate a century ago. People are waking up to the food industry's gimmicks, finding healthy alternatives, and affecting a tidal wave of change that's becoming too powerful to ignore. And there is a clear philosophy behind this movement.
The idea is to use livestock to heal the land.
Reconnect the food chain from roots to the consumer back together.
The more transparent we can be, the better.
Your food choices make a real difference in the world that we see.
I think we need to start knowing the science, but talking in clear, honest, simple ways.
Let nature show us its own ways to sustain us.
Il sapere che ci è stato trasmesso da millenni di storia sarà il nostro futuro.
With a different choice, we could have quite likely avoided getting sick.
Reintroduce yourself to food. Experience food again.
This is the story of individuals who chose to affect change in their relationship to food and its production. Growing up in a small town of Abruzzo, Italy, filmmaker Loreto Di Cesare was raised in a culture where traditional methods of farming and food preparation play an essential role in everyday life. The importance of food is not only a key part of sustaining life, but is the pinnacle of social gatherings and celebrations. When he came to America, he wanted to find others who share this relationship and produce real food. My name is Brian Balcom. I am originally from Portland, Texas, a small town just north of Corpus Christi, which is located in one of the top grain and cotton-producing counties in North America. Up until now, I'd never given much thought to the industrial farming practices I grew up around. But after working with Loreto over the past few years and learning more about the culture he grew up in, I have become more aware of our system's shortcomings. This is what inspired us to seek out the answers to why our food system has become so different from the rest of the world. Soon thereafter, we were given an opportunity for Loreto to visit Navdanya in Doon Valley, India, and speak with Vandana Shiva. Vandana is a highly regarded and world-renowned expert in protecting the integrity of living resources and native seeds. Her passion for local and organic methods of farming are well known. And it forced us to start asking some very simple yet extremely important questions about our food in the U.S. Questions about the importance of healthy soil, what's really in our food, and so on.
One thing I've learned in my 40 years of activism, if all you have is a no, you're not strong enough. You have to have a yes for something that you can shape. And the no must come from a ground that is sovereign, autonomous, democratic. And you must do the work that it takes. Can't wait for governments and corporations to make the shift. People must. My view of death is it's just a passing on into another phase. We can have our theories about what happens after. I've grown up in a culture which believes in reincarnation, and I'm very happy with the idea of us being born into other forms, which also creates a huge respect for us being part of the earth family today. You know, you could be that insect tomorrow, so don't look down on it.
Vandana is well versed in a majority of the most complex and challenging issues about global food systems. We just needed to know what makes the American food system so complex and challenging.
My own reading is that the industrial system is costing the earth so much, more than 75% ecological destruction. It's not really bringing us food, it's not a food system. Only 10% of the corn and soya is being fed to humans. Only 30% of the food people eat is coming from that industrial model. We need food, and therefore we need a food system, and a food system has to be based on two qualities. It must produce diversity of nourishment, because a diet that is not diverse is not a full diet. And it must produce this nourishment with the lightest footprint in terms of demands for resources. If you take the nourishment part of the limits and you take the ecological limits into account, there really isn't a place for industrial farming in the future. Now, how much time it'll take for it to fade into history as more relevant forms of the food system that are more resilient, that will survive the climate havoc we are seeing, that one cannot predict. Maybe our own conditions for survival on this planet will be destroyed faster than the industrial system will, but it doesn't change the duty we have to create systems that don't destroy the earth and don't destroy the farmers and don't destroy our health. And the challenge is to bring ecological and nutritional literacy. And it's in a way, you know, human beings are having to reinvent themselves to remember what this body is about, what nutrition it needs, what we can grow in a little plot of land to meet all our nutrition requirements. And it's definitely a very big educational issue. And we're engaged in it through our Gardens of Hope. It is also about each of us and our freedom to eat nourishing food. The diversity that we have on this farm produces more nourishment per acre without any chemicals. This is the answer to hunger in a period of climate change. This is the answer to hunger in a period where we recognize that 30% of the food people eat is coming from industrial farms, and most of it is nutritionally empty, which is why there are new diseases. We are now realizing, and science is teaching us, that the diversity in the soil is reflective of the diversity in our gut. Biodiversity is not just in the Amazonian rainforest. It's invisible, working away to gift us fertility. It's working away in our gut. And when we destroy the fauna and flora of our gut, either by depleting the nutrients that allow different organisms to flourish, or by putting toxins, we are turning our gut into the same diseased ecosystem that industrial agriculture has transformed our soils into. Beneficial organisms go, pathogens appear, that is where soil disease begins, that's where human disease begins. We can no more disconnect the health of the soil from our own health. We can no more disconnect diversity from our very survival. I think we need to start knowing the science, but talking in clear, honest, simple ways. This mentality that thinks that every insect must be killed, every bacteria must be killed, every animal must be wiped out, biodiversity is our enemy. That war in the mind that is behind industrial agriculture and behind corporate control is the war we must end, to make peace with biodiversity. And that peace with biodiversity begins with the seed. When our seeds are diverse, our foods are diverse. When diversity is taught to us by different species, we learn how to be democratic ourselves. Diversity is the teacher of democracy, and democracy is freedom. So this contest between uniformity and diversity is a contest between dictatorship and democracy. And for every seed we plant the seeds of earth democracy. With every seed we sow, that is saved with love, nourished with love, evolved with love, we are sowing our own future and connecting that future with millennia of evolution of nature and thousands of years of human brilliance. It's a contest between the brilliance and intelligence in every species, in all of our ancestors and all of the future generations to come, and the ignorance being deliberately crafted by a huge public relations machinery that has only two things to sell: lies and poisons. We are better off without both. So let's be strong, let's stand in solidarity, let's celebrate life on this planet and defend it with all our love. We are strong because we have the energy of life.
One thing that Loretto and I noticed is that there seems to be a global trend when other countries are educating themselves on the American food system. They seem to be doing so with a variety of documentaries that focus on the negative aspects of our food system. There is no denying the importance of these documentaries, and it was a beautiful way to wake us up to the reality of what's happening. But through our own personal experiences, we felt that there was another side of the story that needed to be told. We wanted to show the positive aspects of the industry, told through testimonials from the farmers who are changing the way that we look at food. And we started by simply looking local. The local food movement is the idea that food is best when it is found closest to its source. The goal is to connect the farmers with consumers in the same geographic location in order to develop more self-reliant and resilient food networks in the community. We looked at the farms in our own area and we knew just the farm to go to. Primal Pastures is a small farm located in Murrieta, California, operated by Paul Grieve and his family. Primal Pastures and the story behind its conception is a testament of how far people are willing to go to ensure their family's health.
I could have done a lot of different things, but I chose farming because it speaks deeply to your soul. Like, it's something that you feel so passionate about and something that's so visible and tangible. There's nothing like it.
Primal Pastures was developed around the principles of simply providing good food for their family, which of course in theory is what we all want, And aside from the staggering amount of obstacles you face when becoming a first-generation farmer, the question is, where do you start?
It was completely in the dark. It was no experience whatsoever, but we all had some health issues, and we started learning more about what we were putting into our body that actually made an effect on how we felt. And so from that, we chased this rabbit hole and said, look, let's raise some ourselves and just give this whole thing a shot.
It is hard to imagine the challenges of starting a successful farming operation with what Paul explained was no experience whatsoever. But the bigger question is why they chose this type of farming operation over the more popular, larger industrial farming system.
It's important to acknowledge that we're not trying to say our way is the only way, but we're talking about farming, sustainably taking care of our soil for generations and generations to come. With the conventional system right now, it's manufacturing. It's max efficiency, feeding the most amount of people for the cheapest price possible. It's a huge difference. It's almost two different industries.
Primal Pastures is leading a new generation of farms that are using basic farming practices, revitalized with modern technology in all aspects of their operations. This also plays a vital role in connecting with their consumers.
This is still a grassroots movement, a literal grassroots movement, because we're all about the pasture. There's not huge money in small family farms. There's not lobbyists in DC trying to take care of us. This is a consumer-driven, market-driven approach, and it's all based on consumers voting with their dollar. We focus on educating customers about the difference of what we do and the stuff that they're finding available in the grocery store or whatever. So we host thousands of people every year for farm tours. We want them to come out, see their food, meet the farmers. The more transparent we can be, the better, because we got nothing to hide. We actually want people to see our farm as opposed to some of these guys who are trying to hide everything. And then convenience. We put everything online. Folks can order online through the website. We'll ship it to their doorstep. We try to make it as seamless and as easy as possible.
One of the important things is education, like you said. Why is it, unless we weren't paying attention in school, in elementary school, the basic principles of where you learn about food, why is this not being taught to kindergartners about the importance of the entire environment, the ecosystem, the soil, and how it all needs to come? Why are they not teaching that to kids now?
They should be. This should be common knowledge for kids. I think probably 100 years ago it was taught. They probably had gardening programs, farming programs, some basic stuff for kids, and I think that's one thing we're really passionate about changing. We want to see these programs being taught to kids, 20-year-olds and grown-ups and old people, but especially the kids.
So with no experience, where do you start educating yourself?
There are some heroes in our industry for sure, and there's people that are putting out content online, especially for my generation of folks, that's just super inspiring. So guys like Joel Salatin, Alan Savory, Mark McAfee, they're putting out this content. It's just so motivating.
So the common question is, can this system feed the world?
I don't really like to get into the argument of, can you feed the whole world? Can you, I don't know, but like Mark Shepard says again, you might as well try. I mean, it's a good use of your time, and you might work a 12, 14-hour day sometimes, but it's inspiring work, so what would you rather be doing?
Our experience with Paul Greaves set us out on an educational journey to try and have the questions that we are all asking about our food answered. We figured who better to answer these questions than the people that Paul looked to for guidance and whose life's work is farming and food. There is a growing movement in the farm industry that has a refreshing sense of unrestricted creativity and innovative thinking on ways to produce healthy food for the community. If you are looking for an education in either farming or food in general, look no further than Polyface Farms.
Teddy Roosevelt said one time, he said, it's really hard to get people to think differently when their paycheck depends on believing something else. And I think that that's part of this. There is a huge amount of money right now to be made on the broken system.
Polyface Farms encompasses the idea of farming with integrity. This family-operated farm of over 50 years takes on the responsibility of what it means to be a farmer, producing quality food for the community while respecting the environment and the life forms that are providing us with that.
Well, here at Polyface, we're in the pastured livestock business. The idea is to use livestock to heal the land. The deep soils that we're still mining in the Midwest, we're growing corn and soybeans and things, these have all been built with animals, with perennials, predators. You know, there's this activity. So how can we mimic that activity on the land to actually build soil and to actually stimulate the hydration cycle and all those kinds of neat things and sequester carbon? You know, how can we do that? That's our life's mission.
To the average consumer, it is easy to get lost in the confusion of food production methods. But when you take a step back, raising animals in their natural environment doesn't seem like something you would consider a new innovative way of farming. But healing the land, mimicking natural ecosystems, sequestering carbon? Let's dive a bit deeper into pasture-raised farming.
Well, in its most basic form, pastured farming is managing the meeting between animal and grass. That's what we do. We manage when the animal and the grass meet. That's the mechanics of it. The philosophy of it is that these animals are supposed to be out moving around, that it's not part of the ecological system for animals to either not move or be confined in factory houses. When you put them out on pasture, they're moving, they're exercising, they're getting salad bar, green material, they're breathing in clean air instead of fecal particulate air. There are a lot of dynamics here that are going on. That's the big why.
It's amazing to see how these dynamics affect everybody and everything at the farm. And it's all based around one principle.
Let's talk about happiness. Happiness is a kind of esoteric type of term. How can you have happiness if the life around you is not happy? And so when we ask the question, literally, how do we create a habitat that allows the pig, the cow, the chicken, the tomato, the potato to fully express their physiological distinctiveness, that's not just a pie-in-the-sky fantasy question. It's a very real question, because ultimately it creates an energy of happiness. And that energy of happiness then expresses itself right through the nutrition, but it transports itself right through. The fact is, everything is connected to everything.
There's an obvious question of why. Why wouldn't you treat these life forms that we all depend on for food and nourishment with the highest level of respect?
We live in a time when the orthodoxy of our day is that nature is fundamentally broken and we have to fix it. I would suggest nature is fundamentally well, and if it's broken, we probably broke it.
There, of course, are multiple factors in the system that are beneficial, but there is one that seems to be the glue holding it all together, literally: soil.
When you look at the soil, what you realize is that the soil loves to be covered. The soil never wants to be naked. The earth wants to be clothed, all right? And so nature concentrates on perennials rather than annuals. You were here in January when all this was brown and the soil was sleeping. The cows were in the, in eating hay, and so then what we did was we took that manure and that bedding from the winter, all that carbon and compost. Used the pigs to compost it. That comes back out here on the fields, and that compost then feeds the soil when the soil is now waking up. And then you add the animals that move across it with their, choreography. So you've got the cows coming across, the chickens coming across. And so this is the role of the herbivore in nature, is that it prunes, just like a viticulturalist would prune a vineyard or an orchardist would prune an apple tree to stimulate verdant luxurious growth. The herbivore and the omnivore as well, but primarily the herbivore is there to stimulate this new luxuriant growth, so that there's actually way more solar energy converted to decomposable biomass than would be if this were just allowed to grow and then die. The healthy soil then grows a healthier, more dynamic biomass, which makes more roots, which makes more organic matter, which makes more earthworms. It's a regenerative, abundant system if we mirror our farm systems to the ecological template. Then it's a system of abundance.
After learning about the benefits of everything that this way of farming has to not only the people consuming these products, but the environment and ecosystem in general, we can't help but be concerned about how we are passing this knowledge on to future generations. This is also a very big part of Joel's life. In addition to his life at home, enjoying time with his family on the farm, he dedicates a great deal of time traveling globally in an effort to educate people on all aspects of farming. It is a reflection of the type of person he is. Because of his commitment to sharing his life's work with the rest of us and spreading awareness of not only the dire situation our current American food system is in, but he gives us an idea of what the answer to the problem looks like. His teachings can be seen at hundreds of farms around the world, but also there at Polyface Farms.
Well, farming it's important to transfer through the generations because it's not an equation. You can't say 2 + 2 always equals 4. There's so many variables, whether it be weather, soil conditions, temperature, all animals, they're always different. And so that just comes from a wealth of experience, and the experience comes from years of doing it. And so to be able to take that, very much like our ancient culture, and transfer it through stories or through experiences to the next generation is really the most valuable way for the next generation to learn and stand on the shoulders of past experiences. As a mentor, when you see a student or someone learning or a child catch what you're trying to teach them, this light bulb goes off, and it's this amazing experience when they get to learn from a mentor and see it firsthand. Oh, I see the egg being laid, I see the calf being born, and that excitement and that exuberance of learning something new happens on a day-to-day basis in farming, and it makes it so exciting.
We all fundamentally know, oh yeah, I really should take more responsibility for my food, my health, my children's health. And so there's a bit of guilt, and it's overwhelming. The beauty of this whole soil thing is that it is biological. It's healable. It's not a machine, it's not mechanical. We can manipulate it however cleverly hubris can imagine to manipulate it. But if it's life, if it's biological, then there is a fundamental sacredness and reverence to that life form. What my challenge would be is come down out of the bleachers and start playing in the game. Once you get that answered in your head, then suddenly you begin looking at soil, at life, at animals, at plants. You look at them differently than if you simply look at them as intricate machines.
What we took away from our trip to Virginia was not only the importance of simplicity and sustainability to our food system, but how you can create a sustainable ecosystem by using simple farming methods modified with modern technologies. Our next stop takes us to Wisconsin to talk to Mark Shepard at New Forest Farms, who is another influence for young farmers learning about sustainability.
The power that you have as a consumer, as an eater of food, when you go to the grocery store, you can buy food that was grown in such a way that they have to destroy an ecosystem and spray everything with chemicals year after year after year and kill everything that's not your broccoli. Or you can buy food that actually helps to restore the natural ecosystems of planet Earth, that help to restore biodiversity, includes trees and shrubs and bushes and vines, cleans the water, purifies the air, provides wildlife habitat and beauty for eons to come. Your food choices make a real difference in the world that we see. We practice what we call restoration agriculture, which is the mimicking of natural ecosystems. So no matter where you live, if it's Pacific Northwest, the Northeast, the Mid-South, up in central Canada, you would design a perennial agricultural ecosystem around the natural native ecologies of that place.
At first, this doesn't look anything like your typical conventional farming system. It looks just like what Mark said, the natural ecology of the native area. But a closer look tells a much bigger story.
We begin with slight little changes to the land using contour farming and terraces, modified ever so little. We make terraces and we shape our fields, arrange our fields so that water is taken from high in the landscape and spread to the ridges slightly lower. Instead of allowing the water to concentrate in valleys and flow away in flash floods, we spread it out to the ridges. Then by planting perennial ecosystems, we prevent all of the oxidizing of soil organic matter, putting carbon into the atmosphere, degrading the soil resource. By planting a perennial ecosystem, we're actually building soil, creating topsoil, turning subsoil into topsoil. And then because we're imitating natural ecosystems, we're planting the trees and shrubs and bushes and vines and grasses that were natural and native to an area. And so all of the wildlife that used to be here starts to find a home. And instead of having to have habitat islands on a farm for wildlife to exist in, the whole entire farm becomes a wildlife habitat island.
Mark's system of restoration farming focuses on building sustainable ecosystems that will benefit people for generations. But what is the biggest difference between this method and the conventional method of farming?
Well, if you were to just take examples of most of the staple food crops in the USA, the top few being rice, wheat, corn, and soybeans. Those are all annual plants that you plant the seeds in the spring, then you harvest more seeds in the fall. And in order to plant these annual plants, you need to have bare soil somehow. So at first, when farms were created, the land had to be cleared, a forest had to be removed, a prairie had to be plowed up in order to expose that soil. so you can plant the soybeans and corn and wheat and so on. Then every year that soil has to be disturbed again. And every time that soil gets either plowed or herbicided, more organic matter oxidizes, you lose more fertility in the soil, more soil washes away in the rain, blows away in the wind. So that's part of what the industrial annual agriculture does. So if you just look at the farms across the road, surrounding us actually on all sides, what did they have to do in order to have that farm? They had to destroy the natural ecosystems of planet Earth in order to start that farm. And we depend on that for clean air, for clean water, and all of the joys and satisfactions that we get out of being in a beautiful, wild, natural place.
So we understand the importance of building a healthy ecosystem, but how does this play a part in the quality of the food it produces?
Now when it comes to the quality of food, oh my goodness. If you look at the nutrients available in number 2 dent corn, which is most of what's being grown around here, and then the nutrients in soybeans, which is the other main crop around here, and you look at the profile of the vitamins and minerals available in corn and beans, there's hardly any nutrition for human beings. There's protein and carbohydrates. There are more deficiencies in vitamins and minerals in corn and soybeans than there are sufficiencies. Well, if you were to take this system here, which is modeled after the oak savanna, where some of the crops we're growing are chestnut, hazelnut, apples, cherries, mulberries, elderberries, grapes, raspberries, currants, animals, which can include cattle, sheep, pigs, turkey, chickens. Eggs would be part of a system like that. Then you do a nutritional profile of that. You have all of the human nutrients you could possibly want within. Not only do we not spray chemical sprays here, we don't spray anything. So this is as natural that you can get any food grown, as clean as you can possibly get it on planet Earth. And the animals, no antibiotics, hormones, any of that kind of stuff. And they're not confined, buried up to their necks in poop. They're wandering around free, doing what they want to do. They all have names. We name all of our animals because we feel that they deserve a happy personal relationship lifestyle too. Is there a qualitative difference between number 2 dent corn, soybeans, and a system like I just described? I think so.
So this takes us back to the question we asked everybody we have visited. How do we start to take advantage of this system?
If I would give any advice to the common consumer, I guess what I would do first is my personal focus would be more on personal health. With your fruits and your vegetables, start buying certified organic products because there's arguments left and right whether there's more or less nutrition. That's not my point. My point is that if you're buying certified organic products, there is no pesticide residue. There are no chemical residues on your food. There just aren't. I don't care what the data says about how much or relevant it is. There just isn't any because it's not sprayed. So start there, and anybody can do that. Well, what if you eat broccoli twice a week? And if you do a small step by just shifting over your vegetables first, then you shift over your fruits and strategically choose which ones you move. Now eventually start saying, wow, where are these vegetables coming from, and can I find a farmer nearby who grows stuff like this? Now you make a personal connection between yourself and the farmer and that piece of land that the farmer uses. Now you have direct knowledge of who's growing your food and how. A lot of people say that, yeah, well, you can't feed the world that way. Well, yeah, let's give it a try.
We talked a great deal about sustainability and learned about Mark's practice of restoration farming. We saw firsthand that by simply following the rules of nature, we can provide ourselves with all the nutrition we need to live a healthy life. This is just another healthy option that we learned that we can take advantage of. But along with everything else, it comes down to our own choice.
A very bright man, 400 years before Christ, Mr. Hippocrates himself, ancient doctor, in Greece, said, "Let food be your medicine and medicine be your food." We've lost touch with that in modern America. We have a responsibility to feed people, and we know the value of our food. Well, my name is Mark McAfee. I'm the CEO and founder of Organic Pastures Dairy here in Fresno, California. We were founded in 1999 to produce organic milk, but we didn't realize that it was going to be raw milk until consumers started contacting us and saying, "We want your milk raw, not pasteurized." And so we evolved very quickly to become an organic, pasture-based, raw milk company.
When you think of raw, there are quite a few stereotypes that come to mind. So we needed to clarify what separates Organic Pastures' raw product from the rest.
Very simply, there's raw milk produced for people and raw milk produced for the pasteurizer, and their worlds are different, completely different standards. The current paradigm in power, the processors, the FDA, love to commingle them all together and make a big mess out of it so nobody can understand what we're talking about. They rejoice in confusion. And what we're trying to do is make it very simple, because it is simple. You mix 50 dairies milk together with very loose standards that allow for pathogens and very high bacteria counts. That milk needs to be pasteurized. And it goes to a centralized processing plant, and it is. That's grade A milk for pasteurization in America. Then the other kind of milk is regulated at the state level, very strict standards. Milk can never be commingled together between two different dairies. Very low bacteria counts. In fact, the bacteria counts have to meet and exceed after pasteurization standards without pasteurizing. So we're talking about very, very low bacteria counts. And that takes a very strict management style. It takes cohesive team management, has safety protocols, testing. It's more expensive. It takes natural organic type practices. You can't replicate those kinds of conditions in a regular confinement dairy operation that they have all over the place. So it's a different kind of milk.
So it's amazing whenever you see large feedlots, there's one element missing. And here you have that element, grass.
Yep.
Please tell us the importance of grass.
Well, it's interesting. When you fly over the conventional CAFO operation, you see a big brown spot, no grass anywhere near it, and you see the alfalfa fields miles away. Here you see the exact opposite. It's a big green spot with all the grass being grown and the cows on top of it. It's actually the inverse of what's going on right now in modern agriculture. It's pretty powerful to see that dramatic difference.
There is a definite movement with farmers recently to connect with their customers. But Organic Pastures seems to have made it a priority with their operations, and it really defines what their farm represents.
Well, if you took all the farmers in America, all the dairymen in America, you line them all up, you can divide them in half, literally, a very nicely distinct line, by those that serve consumers directly and listen to consumers, respond to consumers and serve them directly, and those that serve some other intermediary in the food chain, a broker or a commodity market, and so on and so forth. The closely connected farmer-consumer relationship, the farmer would be listening to the consumer directly saying, "I want to know you, I want to visit you. I get to know my farmer, I know my farmer. I trust my source." So it's a big educational challenge to bring people to a place where they even understand what an unprocessed food is.
Organic Pastures truly represents what it is to be a participant in the positive food movement. They are constantly trying to educate the public on not just the benefits of their product, but more importantly, the benefits of taking advantage of the farms out there trying to make a positive change for all of us.
There could be no more clear message sent from a consumer to a processor or a farmer than the dollar vote. And you just simply stop buying a product and it starts to degrade in the marketplace. You cannot have a more clear message sent. We see organics as the most rapidly growing market segment in food. And we see the industry is getting into it because it's such a buzz. It's so much growth, it's so much fun, it's so much excitement in terms of not spraying, not using GMOs, and being consumer friendly. And the point is, there's a direct correlation between the health of the food and the health of our bodies. In the last 50 to 60 years, we've effectively cleaved that in half and said, go to your doctor, go to your doctor, go to your doctor, take more pharmaceutical medications. We can take care of whatever ails you. And that's never been the message prior to the last 50 to 60 years. The message before was eat well to live well. When you get into organics, you get consciousness of the fact that food matters to my body and it reflects in good health in my body. And then you start inquiring more about that food and you're like, you know what, I don't want it to be highly processed. I want it to be in the natural form that was available, because that's the way it has its enzymes, its probiotic bacteria, its proteins are whole, and that's the way my body can best appreciate its value. So there's kind of a halfway step of organic, and then there's organic unprocessed. And that's where we are right now, is the educational challenge of pushing back so people understand that the ultimate is literally what God made, which is whole, unprocessed, organic-like foods. Bottom line is, you need to go to a new pharmacy. It's the pharma that you see. It's the farm that you see. And it's the farmer's market, whole unprocessed foods that are the foods of all time that Hippocrates talked about. That's the foods that prevent disease. So we have to return to our roots as humans and nourish ourselves through whole food that's unprocessed.
We travel around the country in hopes of learning more about our food system. We learn the importance of keeping things simple, using sustainable methods to ensure the future of food production, and connecting it all with the customer. The reality is that the methods we experienced seem to be more in line with the rest of the world when it comes to basic food production. So we felt that it was necessary to show the basic philosophies and how they compare with the others around the world.
Our place on this planet is to do our best to show and educate the people of the world in the ways of nature as it really is. And this is the future for us all. This world, this planet, has to sustain a little more than 7.3 billion people. And we are surrounded by the most special thing there is, the sea and the oceans. Our oceans represent more than 70% of our global area and gives more than 10% of all the foods on our tables. Everything in nature must be in balance, and without water, nothing would have been. I welcome you all to Rosita, and now you're in northern Norway. That's quite a bit away from where the main parts of this video comes from. Living and being a Norwegian in this very pristine, loving part of this world, I'm representing here a pure natural fish liver oil and oils, and our company is named Rosita Ratfish Oil. And they are made from these pristine environments and the oceans around this island of Dana where we live. Nature creates all and everything through balance and harmony. And this is the most important thing you see and you meet when you come into Rosita. It's all about sustainable living. So we also try to live and teach the gratitude to nature by giving back what we don't need, to feast for nature on the leftovers from our harvest. So we have been out fishing, and you were out with us, and you saw how we gave the gifts back to nature. The oceans is an eco-balanced system where it got all what it needs. So if we give back to nature, instead of bringing it home here and don't use it, and it becomes waste, it's not giving the same back to the ecosystem. So yeah, we are celebrating and living the way of nature the best we can. And it starts, again, it starts with me, from my heart. And this is our living and our teachings. So what you are so happy to see on our tables, you will also feel the gratefulness and the greatness and the grace for the food. And this is something humanity will have to go back to. And this is the way we live and the way we teach.
Il sapere che ci è stato trasmesso da millenni di storia, il sapere quindi di tutte le generazioni che ci hanno preceduto, quello che sicuramente sarà il nostro futuro. Sono Marco Cavalieri, agronomo, specializzato in viticoltura ed enologia. Il mio è un lavoro molto semplice, ma nello stesso tempo estremamente affascinante. È un lavoro affascinante perché è un lavoro che ti mette in sintonia con la natura, che ti mette in sintonia con il creato e che ti rende molto umile. La cosa più importante che io ho apprezzato in tutti questi miei anni di lavoro è la lezione che mi fu data quando feci l'università da un mio professore e che cerco sempre di seguire, cioè quella, quando vai in un posto, quando esplori un territorio nuovo, ascoltare, mettersi in ascolto sempre di tutta la gente, di tutte le generazioni, di tutte le possibilità e le persone che con molto umiltà e sacrificio hanno sempre lavorato in quei terreni, hanno sempre lavorato in quei territori. Io ho avuto nella mia vita la fortuna di calpestare diversi tipi di terreno e diversi tipi di vigneti nelle varie parti del mondo, e questo mettersi in ascolto del territorio dove sei, questo di capire le potenzialità di un territorio è secondo me la forza e l'anima di quello che poi sarà il futuro prodotto. È quell'attenzione, quel riconoscere la biodiversità, quel rispettare l'individualità di un territorio e di esaltarne quelle che sono tutte le caratteristiche. Solo dopo questo ascolto è possibile introdurre o cercare di sintonizzarsi per poter fare delle scelte produttive. Chi sta in quei territori non sa molto spesso perché fa delle cose, ma fa quelle cose lì perché sono in sintonia con quel territorio. Quindi l'aspetto scientifico non è legato esclusivamente ad un sapere che è un sapere letterario, a un sapere che è un sapere dei libri, ma è un sapere che viene da una conoscenza dell'uomo, è un sapere che è stato tramandato, è un sapere che è fatto non solo di intelligenza o di idee, ma è un sapere che è fatto di sentire, è un sapere fatto di tradizioni, è un sapere che è fatto di esperienze vissute direttamente in campo.
So where do we start? Like many of the farmers mentioned, there is a great deal of information floating around out there for you to get your hands on. There are individuals providing us with the information through blogs and other web-driven media, making it easier than ever before to educate ourselves on anything pertaining to food.
I write a blog called Mark's Daily Apple, which has become one of the largest blogs in the world, dealing with all matters that have to do with health, fitness, diet, exercise, medicine. But it really specializes in the ancestral way of eating and sort of patterning our lifestyle after the expectation of our genes. I look at ways in which we can manifest a strong, lean, healthy body based on the choices we make and the foods we eat. I think as a society we've fallen into this mindset that sickness is something that happens to us, and once it happens, the way we deal with it is going to a doctor and getting prescribed a medication, something that's going to fix the symptoms. And the reality is most of what ails us happens as a result of lifestyle choices that we've made. If you look at the types of diseases that people present, a lot of these have to do with choices that we've made in our past in terms of the foods that we've elected to include in our diet or lack of exercise. And all of those are things that with a different choice we could have quite likely avoided getting sick. So I've really spent much of my career educating people on the way the body responds, literally how the genes turn on or off in response to the signals that we give them from the environment that we create around those genes, by those choices that we make through the foods we eat, the types of exercise we choose to do, sleep, and sun exposure. And then the other thing I'd say is take a step back and remember, if you will, what a real tomato smells like and tastes like. And what we're looking at here is not only how the tomato was grown, or any produce for that matter, but the amount of time it took to pick it, to gas it so that it wouldn't ripen too soon, to truck it across the country, to store it in cold storage, and then put it on the shelves so that you might come by and pick it up. That's not how we were designed to consume our vegetables, for instance. The best way to do this is to take it right off the vine and consume it. So if you think about eating locally and buying your produce locally at a CSA, a farmer's market, even at a co-op that has relationships with local farmers, you're getting produce that was picked the day before maybe, and now you're consuming it while the flavor is still the brightest, freshest, most absolutely beautiful flavor possible. And you're maximizing the nutrients that are in that. This is sort of a mindset that people, once they understand this, they appreciate what real food not only does for their health, but how it tastes better.
I'm Joshua Weissman, and I am 19 years old. At the age of 16 years old, I lost more than 100 pounds to the use of real food and whole food and cooking. At the age of 17, I published my first cookbook after I created my website, slimpalate.com. I created my website in hopes of sharing my story and my recipes to inspire others to start cooking again, lose weight, eat healthier, whatever, just all in the name of real food. Because after I lost more than 100 pounds, I discovered that food is not only something that is amazing and something that we have to interact with every day of our life, but it's a very powerful tool to change everything that we believe in, the way that we look, the way that we approach problems in life. And I think that food for me has been a very powerful tool in not only changing the way that I look, but also changing the way that I think, the way that I see where my food comes from. And it's very important to me that I know where everything that I eat comes from. So I buy from local farms, and I buy from farmers markets, and you name it. Everything I want locally and I want raised properly. And I really only discovered this after I sort of slowly began introducing myself to the real food movement. So that was my entire beginning when I was losing weight, was really just focusing on real food. It wasn't about trying to find different kinds of weird diets or weird cutting corners. And I think that there's a lot of hocus pocus magic items out there, like all of these diet bars and these diet cereals and this diet that, which are all like randomized replacement foods for things that people supposedly miss when they could make it at home. But if they were making it at home, they wouldn't be eating it as often. So really it all roots back to, are you at home cooking your food from scratch? Because if you are, you're probably okay. And if you want to dive more into specifics, then you can from that point. But for me, it was like I was way out of bounds, and I was eating fast food every day, and I was eating junk food every day. And that spiraled out of control, and I was, overweight, and it just wasn't working for me. So I decided that I would change everything, and I've never regretted that decision. And now I just want to share my story and help others do the same thing. And I aspire to many great things, and food is sort of my passion, so I always keep it real.
We understand that connecting with your local farmer is virtually impossible for some people. But fortunately for us, there's a growing amount of grocery stores, along with local farmers markets out there, providing their communities with the quality food that local farms are producing.
For over 30 years now, I've been involved in the organic business. I got very involved with produce and trying to understand the value of organic produce, not only from a health standpoint, but from an environmental standpoint. And that was our focus from the very get-go. When I opened my first store, I said, my goal was to do something that, with integrity, that would bring value and help people. And I never get up on a soapbox and preach, but I wanted to offer people a choice. And when I first started the business, I had, partly due to the fact that there wasn't as much organic produce available as there is today, but also because it was an educational process, I only had half my store being organic. But as time has developed and we found more and more organic produce and became more and more committed towards it, it's virtually 95% organic produce. And I do it now not just because for me, but I do it for future generations, because the quality of the food that we eat definitely affects who we are and how we act. You are what you eat. If you want to be at your best, you eat the best food you can. We deal as much as possible with local farmers, and we've been doing that since our inception. And I had many interactions with local farmers who were conventional, who would talk to me about, hey, if I switched or started to grow organically, would you buy it from us? And I would commit to these farmers, yes, I would buy it from them. And at times we had a glut of some of their produce, but because I was committed to encouraging them to grow organically, we would find a way to use that produce no matter how much produce we would get from them. And so our first and primary is to get as much organic produce as possible from local farmers. So our two primary objectives is as much organic produce as possible, buying as much product with organic ingredients. And I can't tell you how many times we've turned down products either due to the fact that there weren't organic ingredients or there were at-risk GMO ingredients in the product. But a number of these manufacturers have come back and reformulated their products so that it meets our requirements, which makes me feel like we're doing the right thing by taking a stand, by walking our walk, talking our talk. So at the end of the day, it really is about allowing our customers to be able to choose what products they want, what they can eat, and by offering them organic produce, they have the opportunity to choose what's best for them, for what's best for their health. They don't have to choose that, but more often than not, once they start eating this way, and especially if they have kids, they're making a positive choice and a positive impact on not just themselves, but their entire family. And we do this because we believe it's not just better for their health, but it's better for the environment.
My wife and I are organic farmers. We're also biodynamic, which is a higher elevated form of organics. Everything that we grow is a organic heirloom seed, which is a 100-year-old seed variety. There's no GMOs involved in anything. We do our own composting to make it even more so in terms of being biodynamic. We also do all of the fruits and vegetables in a seasonable fashion. We're known sort of for our lettuces in the wintertime and our tomatoes in the summertime. And fortunately, in doing farmers markets on Saturdays and Sundays, we're learning that more and more people are starting to get a good idea of how important organics are in terms of our food sources.
Every weekend I come sell our product at the farmers market. Everything's grown in California and we sell to the local California people.
I sell organic fruit and vegetables, and we bring it directly to the farmers markets so that people can eat organic and naturally grown vegetables and fruits.
Hi, we're T&D Farms. We grow all of our fresh produce. We bring it to the customers direct, local farmers markets all around Southern California.
There has never been a better time and a more efficient time in human history to actually participate in the food system. That's the truth.
Your food choices make a real difference on how our planet looks and how healthy the whole planet is.
We are the soil and our farm is the soil.
And reconnect the food chain from roots to the consumer back together.
Simplicity, sustainability, education. These are some of the key factors that we take from our travels. But from all of our experiences listening to people working every day to make a positive change in the food industry, our food choices are most important because we are what makes a difference.
I like coming to the farmer's market because for me it brings the farmer, the producer, closer to the consumer. So I think it's a great place to shop.
I shop here because I like food to taste the way it's supposed to and smell the way it's supposed to. So it's inviting.
I'm at the farmer's market and I come here every weekend because I enjoy buying organic fruits and vegetables and I find it very healthy for me.
I'm shopping here because I want to have food that is organic and does not contain pesticides, and I'm having an increasing knowledge about what pesticides can do to your body. So I want to make sure that I have food that's safe.
I like shopping in the farmer's market because I love fresh food and it's really good for my health.
I enjoy going to the farmer's market every week and talking to the farmers about their produce and their fruit.
I shop here predominantly for healthy, natural, organic foods, non-pesticide ridden products, so I can stay away from the byproduct of that being cancer and other health-related issues that I think are becoming prominent in our society.